fighting.
Good afternoon, everyone. We'll get started here in 2 minutes. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started, or morning for those of our friends in the far west. Welcome to the U.S. Treasury Department's webinar on the Capital Projects Fund. We appreciate you spending the next hour with us as we provide you all with an overview of the Capital Projects Fund guidance and application process, as we outline key dates and milestones and answer a few questions that you submitted about the program. Treasury launched the program on September 20th by releasing the guidance for recipient governments, which provides key details on the use of funds and the application process. And we opened the application portal on September 24th. Next slide, please. Keep in mind that today we're summarizing the guidance, so naturally we won't be covering all of the details here, but we encourage you to read the full guidance. Next slide, please. Our agenda today will provide a brief overview of the fund, followed by a deeper look into the uses of the fund, a walkthrough of how to apply for funding, some high-level points about reporting requirements, and then move to a Q&A based on questions we've received to date. As a reminder, we will not be answering questions live today, but ask that you submit your questions using an email address that we'll post in the chat. We'll do our best to respond in a timely manner. And thank you for your patience. First, we're going to start with a few welcoming remarks. We're joined today by the U.S. Treasury's Chief Recovery Officer, Jacob Liebenluft, and then we'll hear from remarks from Lisa Hone from the National Economic Council at the White House. So now I'll turn it over to Jacob.
Thanks so much, Jeff. I'm really excited to be here with all of you today as we discuss the launch of the Capital Projects Fund, one of the many programs that we've established through Treasury's Office of Recovery Programs. On behalf of the entire Treasury Department, I want to express our thanks for not only joining us today, but also for all the work you are doing to help drive a recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. We know that so many of you are on the front lines of this response and appreciate your work and your partnership with us. As Jeff mentioned, my name is Jacob Liebenluft. I lead the Office of Recovery Programs, which Secretary Yellen created earlier this year to manage Treasury's implementation of relief and recovery efforts, including those programs established by the American Rescue Plan. Many of our programs flow directly through state governments, recognizing states' role on the front lines of driving a recovery, whether the state and local fiscal recovery funds, which are providing broad, flexible support to help states respond to the crisis, emergency rental assistance and homeowner assistance funds to support state programs that are assisting people as they try to stay in their homes, or the state small business credit initiative. Today, we're excited to discuss a new program that provides an opportunity to invest in a more equitable recovery for all communities moving forward, the Capital Projects Fund. As you all know and experience in your day-to-day work, COVID-19 has underscored many underlying needs in communities across the country, including the importance of universally available, high-speed, reliable, and affordable broadband access, as millions of Americans rely on the internet to participate in critical activities like distance learning, remote work, and access to healthcare. This is particularly true for places like rural America, in low and moderate income communities, and in tribal communities, who prior to the pandemic faced significant obstacles to broadband deployment and other connectivity infrastructure, with these existing vulnerabilities exacerbated by our current crisis. The Capital Projects Fund team that we've assembled at Treasury over recent months is here today to share more information about how to access these funds so that states, territories, and tribes can help families reach good jobs, provide a quality education for their children, and access many critical services needed to fully participate in modern life. As you utilize these funds to drive economic recovery in your communities in the months and years to come, Treasury will remain focused and dedicated to providing support to you, and we look forward to an ongoing partnership as this program gets set up and as these funds get flowing in your communities. With that, I'll turn it back because I know you want to hear more about this program. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jacob. And now I'll turn it over to Lisa Hone for a few remarks. Lisa?
Thanks, Jeff. As Jeff mentioned, my name is Lisa Hone, and I'm a senior advisor for broadband at the National Economic Council at the White House. I am thrilled to join almost 500 of you, and I see the count going up every couple minutes on this webinar focused on the Department of Treasury's Capital Projects Funding Program. As those of you who have already read the guidance the Treasury issued for this program, and I suspect that's almost all of you, as you all know, broadband infrastructure projects, digital connectivity projects, and multi-purpose community facility projects are the three types of projects presumptively eligible for funding. Taken together, these three types of projects attack the digital divide that has been a problem for a long time, but an absolute tragedy during the coronavirus pandemic. And this is where my remarks sound a lot like what you just heard from Jacob. I don't need to tell any of you that the lack of high-speed, reliable, affordable broadband has kept some students from fully engaging in remote learning and homework, has kept some parents and other adults and teenagers from working from home, has kept some patients from being able to take advantage of telemedicine and access to online services. President Biden has made abundantly clear something that you all already know and most of you have been working towards. Americans everywhere need universal, reliable, affordable, and high-speed internet. And universal broadband is long overdue and critical to broadly shared economic success. The lessons we all have learned from the pandemic about the importance of broadband and the funding that Congress has put behind and is adding to broadband deployment, affordability, and digital equity present an exciting opportunity to make a generational investment in broadband. Indeed, I am mindful of the irony that this meeting is online and the fact that finding an adequate connection is currently not something that everybody can count on. I really want to thank the staff of Treasury who worked tirelessly to stand up this funding program and all of you, because I know you will make it a success for the residents of your communities. So thank you very much for joining the Department of Treasury for this webinar, and I look forward to hearing more about the program from them and the questions they've already received and the questions they've already received and the answers to those questions. And we're almost at 500, one short of 500.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. And with that, I'll hand it over to Dana McKenzie, who will begin our presentation and provide an overview of the capital project. Dana?
Thank you, Jeff. And thank you to Jacob and Lisa. We are grateful you made the time to join us today and for your continued support of this program. We are very excited for today. Just as a quick introduction, my name is Dana McKenzie, and I am currently serving as the Interim Director for the Capital Projects Fund program. As Jacob and Jeff said, I'm going to kick us off with a bit of an overview of the program at a very high level, and then my colleagues will come next with some additional details about program specifics. Congress approved this $10 billion fund under the American Rescue Plan to provide funding for governments to build critical capital projects to aid their response to the pandemic. A key priority of this program is to make funding available to recipients for reliable, affordable broadband infrastructure and other digital connectivity technology projects. This pandemic has shown us that just like electricity, broadband infrastructure is indispensable for access to critical services and for the participation in many aspects of daily life, including remote work, telehealth, and distance learning. Treasury published the CPF program guidance on September 20th, and as you all likely know, began accepting applications from states, territories, and freely associated states last week on December 24th, and the team is very excited to see those applications start coming in. There are three main goals of the fund. First is recovery. The fund provides eligible governments with a substantial infusion of resources to meet their critical capital investment needs as part of the COVID-19 recovery, which complements the larger $350 billion state and local fund. The second is equity. As Secretary Yellen has said, long before COVID infected a single individual, we were living in an economy where certain segments of the population were falling further and further behind. This fund aims to address those inequities by improving access to critical services in communities with a critical need. And third, lasting infrastructure. This fund aims to contribute to the administration's goal to provide modern infrastructure necessary to access critical services, including broadband access. Treasury previously announced allocations for its recipients following the formula that Congress provided. This next slide shows us those allocations at their highest level. Out of the $10 billion, states are allocated $9.8 billion. Territories and freely associated states are allocated $100 million in total, and tribal governments in the state of Hawaii for their Native Hawaiian programs are allocated an additional $100 million in total, with each tribal government allocated about $167,000. Specifics about the allocation amounts can be found on the Capital Project Funds website, which we will drop into the chat. This next slide provides an overview of the eligibility criteria under the Capital Projects Fund. The statute provides that funding can be used to carry out critical capital projects directly enabling work, education, and health monitoring, including remote options in response to the public health emergency in respect to COVID-19. The Capital Projects Fund is available for projects that meet all three of the following criteria. First, funding must be used for capital assets designed to directly and jointly enable work, education, and health monitoring. All three activities must be present for an investment in a capital asset to qualify. Second, the project must be designed to address a critical need that resulted from, was made apparent by, or exacerbated by COVID-19. And third, the project must be designed to address a critical need of the community for which it is designed to serve. To simplify the process for eligible governments, Treasury identified several use categories that are presumptively eligible so long as they align with the terms and standards outlined in the guidance. Treasury also developed a case-by-case review process for projects that don't fall into one of the presumptively eligible categories, which we'll talk about more later in the webinar. I'm now going to hand it over to my colleague Gang to talk us through these categories.
Thank you, Dana, and it is wonderful to be here with all of you to share more about the program. So, as Dana said, we simplified the process by identifying some use cases for funding. This slide outlines these categories, also identified by the guidance. There's projects considered to be presumptively eligible, projects that will undergo a case-by-case review, and projects that are presumptively ineligible. And Treasury's goal here was to issue guidance that is effective and clear and explains how states, tribal governments, territories, and freely associated states can choose to use capital projects funds to best address the challenges that they face. And as part of this process, we held extensive consultations with recipients and stakeholders, particularly those who represent historically disadvantaged communities. We wanted to hear about their needs, and we have taken this feedback into account in preparing this program guidance. Treasury's approach simplifies the process for recipients that want to pursue presumptively eligible uses, such as broadband infrastructure and digital connectivity technologies, while providing recipients flexibility to address critical needs within their communities. Now I'll walk through each of these use categories, beginning with presumptively eligible uses of funds. So first, let's talk about broadband infrastructure projects. As we previously mentioned, a key priority of this program is to provide funds for recipients if they choose to make investments in high quality and affordable broadband infrastructure, which we believe is an eligible use. Treasury has simplified the application process for eligible entities that want to use funds to pursue broadband infrastructure investments that meet the standards outlined in the guidance and highlighted on this slide. So first, while Treasury encourages recipients to invest in areas without wireline access to reliable speeds of 120 megabits, it provides broad flexibility for recipients to determine communities with a critical need for build-out. Second, projects must be designed to reliably deliver speeds of 100 megabits symmetrical to be presumptively eligible for capital projects funding, unless it is impracticable to do so. And recipients are required to ensure that the completed service offerings that are funded by the Capital Projects Fund allow subscribers in the service area to utilize the FCC's EBB program. So a few examples of broadband infrastructure projects that are presumptively eligible. They include, first, a high-speed fiber broadband network in a rural area of a state where providers have historically been hesitant to go because of the cost. A second example might be a fiber municipal broadband network in a low-income urban neighborhood where the majority of residents don't have meaningful access to broadband because current options are unaffordable to them. And then a third example might be a fiber-based Wi-Fi build-out in a affordable housing unit, providing high-speed, reliable, no-cost or low-cost internet to households living in the building. Recipients in undertaking these projects are also encouraged to, number one, prioritize investments in fiber optic infrastructure. Number two, require the offering of a low-cost option. And three, prioritize the funding of projects where broadband networks that are owned, operated, or affiliated with local governments, nonprofits, and co-ops. And more information about broadband infrastructure projects can be found. So next, I will walk through digital connectivity technology projects, which are also vital to connect communities online. So CPF funds may be able to be used to purchase or install devices and equipment like laptops and Wi-Fi routers that facilitate robust broadband access that enables work, education, and health monitoring for community members who could not otherwise afford to access broadband services. Treasury has simplified the application process for presumptively eligible digital connectivity technology projects. And an example of a presumptively eligible program is a short or long-term loan program for libraries to loan out laptops to low-income families. I will note that technologies like iPhones and televisions are not presumptively eligible under the Capital Projects Fund program. These devices may be eligible under a case-by-case review if they're determined to meet the eligibility criteria. So in all, providing funding to recipients that choose broadband infrastructure and digital connectivity investments is a key priority of the program. But as we'll cover in the next couple of slides, recipients do have flexibility to pursue other types of projects. One of those is Treasury's third presumptively eligible use category, multi-purpose community facility projects, which are also vital. So multi-purpose community facility projects use funds to construct or improve buildings designed to jointly enable work, education, and health monitoring, and address a critical need in the community. Eligible projects must directly and jointly enable all three activities of work, education, and health monitoring, but additional functions or purposes such as recreational programming are permitted. So a few examples that are listed on the slide of presumptively eligible multi-purpose community facility projects include full-service community schools that provide an academic program, workforce training and health monitoring programming, a library that provides public internet access for work, school, and health monitoring, amongst additional resources like digital skills training. A community health center that, in addition to providing traditional health monitoring, offers a broader range of services, including education and career opportunities, including job counseling and things like health education classes. Presumptively eligible multi-purpose community facility projects will also move through a simplified process so long as they meet this criteria. So for all other projects, recipients will need to show that they meet the statutory requirements on a case-by-case basis. So a little bit more on that. Recipients may propose other uses of funds for capital projects grant funding. And any projects proposed for case-by-case review must meet the three criteria that we outlined earlier. Number one, the project must invest in capital assets designed to directly enable work, education, health monitoring. Number two, the project must be designed to address a critical need that results from or was made apparent or exacerbated by the COVID-19 public health emergency. And the project must be designed to address a critical need in the community to be served by it. And more details about the case-by-case review process can be found in the guidance. Now, finally, I want to discuss presumptively ineligible uses of grant funding. So general infrastructure projects like highways, bridges, transit systems, and ports are presumed to be ineligible. Additionally, the general construction and improvements of hospitals or traditional schools are not presumed to be eligible under Capital Projects Fund program. There may be opportunities for such projects to receive funding if they demonstrate that they directly and jointly enable work, education, health monitoring, and such projects would be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. Treasury also encourages recipients to look at this funding in tandem with other ARP programs, including the state and local program, which has a more varied set of eligible uses. And with that, I'm now going to hand it over to Jeremy, who is going to walk through the application process.
Thanks, gang. Good afternoon, everyone. As mentioned, I'm going to walk you through the application process for states, territories, and freely associated states. So first, let's talk about the application in general. All applications have to be completed by no later than December 27th, 2021. And there's a few additional steps that you need to take after you apply before you can access funds, and those have a later due date. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but the application step must be done by December 27th. We've worked pretty hard to make the application process user-friendly, and we're leveraging the same technology platforms used for other Treasury ARP programs. So if you're already receiving funding from, for example, the state and local fiscal recovery fund or one of the housing programs, you may be familiar with these platforms already. The application generally has several parts. To access the portal, you'll need to register for ID.me. Some of you may have been the person who completed this for one of Treasury's other ARP programs. You may have done this step already, but the ID.me registrations are person specific. So if you've never logged into Treasury's portal before, you'll need to create an ID.me account. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes to do this. It involves using a webcam to show your documents to a representative to verify your identity. Fortunately, you only have to do this once, and many of you have done it already, as I said. So we've provided resources on our website that can help troubleshoot if any issues arise with that. Then after that, you must complete an application. You log into the CPF portal, provide information establishing your applicant eligibility, and indicate the award amount. The application should only take about an hour to complete. I'm going to walk you through a few screenshots here in a minute to show you different key components. After the information in the application is complete, you have to certify that that information provided is accurate. And this certification must be done by the governor or a similar leader who has legal authority to submit the application and enter into agreements on behalf of the recipient. Now, if it's not the governor doing it, it can be a representative that has been duly authorized to do so. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Once the application is submitted, we may ask you questions to clarify or correct issues with your application, and you should plan to respond to those questions quickly. Finally, you must sign and enter into a legal agreement with Treasury that binds you as the recipient to the terms of the program. And if you haven't had an opportunity to access the portal, I want to take this time to walk you through what the application itself looks like, so it's clear how some of the steps I just outlined will be completed in the portal. Most of the application is pretty straightforward, so this will go pretty quickly. And the application is live on our website right now, so you can actually access this as soon as we're done with the webinar if you'd like. So the first screenshot here, you can access the link to the portal through our website. Super easy to get our website. It's treasury.gov/CPF for Capital Projects Fund. You'll find link buttons. They say something like apply for the Capital Projects Fund. They're in a few different locations on the website. It should be pretty easy to find. Then you have to log into id.me, which of course requires you to be registered. Once you're in, you'll be taken here to the portal's homepage. Again, the portal covers many of Treasury's ARP programs, so you'll see a few different options. Your first visit here, you'll want to click on the Start Submission button that's circled, but at any time, you can return to this page. You click on that Go to Your Reports button at the bottom, and you can continue working on your application, or if it's already been submitted, you can come back here, click on View Your Reports, and see the real-time status of your application's review. So once you click Start a Submission, you'll see this page. You just select Yes here to confirm that you're applying for the Capital Projects Fund program, and then you'll tell us whether you're a state, a territory, freely associated state. And as soon as you do this, you'll get an email telling you that your application was created. And you're going to get a lot of emails from us. And this is just one example. We're not going to show you all the emails. This is just one example. As you move through the process, we'll keep emailing you every time there's a status update. The links and contact information will be the same in all of them. And as a reminder, you should feel free to email us or call us anytime you have an issue with your application. So I'm only going to show you a few of the application slides because most of it's pretty straightforward. But I briefly mentioned earlier that the authorized representative requirement. To reiterate this, the authorized representative is the person who will sign the certification and submit the application on behalf of the government that is applying. The authorized representative is not necessarily the person filling out this online portal. And this page is where you're going to tell us if the authorized representative is duly authorized by virtue of their position, such as by being a state governor, or if they have delegated authority. If it's delegated authority, then you'll need to submit to us a designation letter showing that delegation has occurred. So this slide is just summarizing a series of additional steps in the application that you'll go through. Primary contact information for the person. This is for the person who's actually filling out the online portal. It also allows you to give us some other POC contacts so that we can send emails to whoever you think needs the information. Applicant information is where you identify the state or territory freely associated state that's actually applying for funding. You'll provide basic information for that entity, and it should match your SAM.gov registration. The authorized representative information is contact info for the actual person signing the certification. So the governor, for example. Banking information is self-explanatory. After you get through all of that, you'll see a page that looks something like this. This will automatically show you your CPF allocation. You can see it, there's auto-calculated arrows showing you where it pops up. And this is the amount. It's also posted on our website. It may be different for each applicant. And in this page, you can select whether you want to receive the full amount or not. And we expect that most of you will say that you want to receive the full amount, but you're allowed to request a lower amount if you wish to. If you want to do that, you say no here, and then you can type in how much CPF allocation you wish to receive. When you click Calculate Available Administrative Funds, it's going to auto-populate that next field down, that lower dollar figure. And this is going to be 5% of your total award. And it's the amount of administrative funds that you want to receive upfront. And there's specific instructions in our guidance if you want to see what those upfront funds can be used for. But in general, if you don't request it now, you can get it later, the administrative funds piece. Okay, so that pretty much concludes the application. Once the application is completed and you enter into you'll get contacted by us and you will enter into a grant agreement. And after that, you'll receive instructions on completing a grant plan. The grant plan is designed to describe in greater detail the anticipated uses of funds and establish some measures for assessing performance. Applicants will be given access to the grant plan once the application has been reviewed and approved. As I mentioned, the grant plan templates are not posted on our website at this time. Grant plans will include the following components: an executive summary that provides an overview of the programs and projects that will be funded through the Capital Projects Fund, an allocation table showing the broad categories of projects and intended spending on each, and one or more program plans that provide more detailed information on each broad category of projects that's included in the allocation table. So to summarize, every applicant will have one grant plan, and that grant plan will contain one or more program plans, and the program plans have projects that you finance within them. Program plans may be submitted all at once or one at a time, and you can do this on a rolling basis. Treasury will review the program plans as discrete elements and will make funding available as they are received and approved. All grant plans and program plans must be submitted no later than September 24th, 2022. So you have plenty of time to do this. And Treasury may grant exceptions to that date if necessary. You can expect to hear more about the grant plan and its requirements as you work through your application. Next, I'm going to talk about applicant outreach and support. To support you through the complex process that I just described, well, hopefully not too complex, but there are a lot of steps to it. We've stood up an applicant liaison team that will provide a range of services aimed to improve your applicant experience. For each state, territory, and freely associated state recipient, you'll have a dedicated point of contact on our team to work with throughout the application and grant plan processes so that we can help you to resolve issues and answer any questions that you run into. Additionally, there may be webinars and briefings like this one for a range of audiences, including recipients, to provide information and opportunities to ask questions. We also will continue to take incoming questions and we'll update our FAQ documents for reference by applicants. And we're going to share all of this information on our website along with other useful resources responding to your needs. So be sure to bookmark our webpage. Finally, I touched on this earlier, but we've set up a centralized email inbox and a call center. So if you're having an issue and you're not sure who to call about something, you can send in the request to capitalprojectsfund@treasury.gov or give us a call. So now I'm going to hand it over to Mo, who will provide a brief overview of the reporting requirements and then take us into the question and answer portion of today's webinar. Mo, over to you.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. So as he just said, I'm going to briefly talk through reporting requirements at a high level and then use the rest of our time today to answer some questions that were submitted in advance of today's webinar. So to get started with reporting requirements, as indicated in the guidance, recipients will be required to submit ongoing reports regarding their use of Capital Projects Fund grants and their activities. And there are two different types of reports. First, we will require project and expenditure reports, which will include information about the types of projects being funded, project status, financial data, and other project type specific data. States, territories, and freely associated states will submit these reports quarterly. Second, we will also require performance reports to be submitted annually. These reports will provide more detail on the approach, objectives, and descriptions of projects, share any information on performance indicators, and outline how the projects promote equity. Treasury will be providing additional reporting guidance and instructions on reporting requirements for the Capital Projects Fund at a later date. So with that, I am going to use the time, as I said, to answer some questions that were submitted by applicants prior to this webinar. And any questions we do not have time to answer today that you may have submitted will be answered by the team in the near future. And as we said several times, we will not be taking live questions today, but we welcome you to continue to send questions to our email address that we will follow up with after the session. So let's get started with our first question. Question number 1, can the grant plan, including at least one program plan, be filed at the same time as the application, aka before the grant agreement is executed? So Jeremy, I will let you respond to this one.
Okay, so applications must be submitted by December 27th of this year, December 27th, 2021. And Treasury is not going to accept or review any grant plans from any applicants until the application is approved. So to be eligible to receive by Treasury, the grant agreement must be executed, and subsequently, the grant plan must be approved. The grant plan template will be made available through the web-based portal in coming weeks. And as I mentioned earlier, you'll have until September 24th, 2022 to submit all of your grant plan documents.
Great. Thank you, Jeremy. Okay, we will move to question number 2. The guidance indicates that program plans can be submitted on a rolling basis throughout the 365-day submission window. Does that mean that all program plans must be submitted no later than September 24th, 2022? This one is quick, and we've touched on this a couple of times, so I'll just go ahead and say that yes, all program plans must be submitted by December 24th, 2022. So on to the next one, question number 3. Are cities or counties eligible to apply for Capital Projects Fund grant funds? Gang, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, Mo, I'd be happy to. So the American Rescue Plan established the Capital Projects Fund to make payments to states, territories, freely associated states, and tribal governments. So cities and counties are not eligible to be direct recipients. But while cities and counties aren't eligible recipients of the fund, we do encourage states to engage with communities when planning for the use of grant funds.
Great, thank you so much. Our 4th question today is, if a state wanted to use all of its allocated Capital Projects Fund funding for broadband infrastructure projects, could a state submit its grant plan and a single program plan for all of its funding at one time? And I will hand this one to Jeff to respond.
Thanks, Mo. Yes, a recipient may use all of the allocated funding for a single eligible program. So Treasury understands that there are many states out there that have broadband grant programs in existence, and they may want to distribute these funds through that program. So yes, they can go ahead and when the grant plans are available, they would simply fill out the grant plan to include this as a program within the grant plan, and they are able to distribute that funding through multiple allocation rounds or on a rolling basis, just in accordance with their grant plan. All their funds must be expended by December 31st, 2026. So, thank you.
Great, thank you so much. All right, our next question is state collected data such as broadband mapping data an allowable cost? And Jeff, I might have you take this one as well.
Sure, happy to. So this is very, very important. And this is where we're going to encourage you to go back to the guidance, because there are different types of costs that are allowable. There's administrative costs and there's program or project costs. And they're distinct, and we provide examples and some guidance as to what those are. State collected data such as broadband mapping is an allowable project cost. It's not an administrative cost though. So we want to make that distinction, and again, encourage you to go to the guidance for clarity. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. And our final question for today's webinar is, can a program fund a broadband infrastructure project in an area where there is an existing enforceable federal funding commitment? And Dana, I think I will hand this one to you.
Great. Thanks, Mo, and thanks for those who sent in this important and good question. Recipients really should ensure that any capital project funding grant funding proposed for use in locations where there is an existing enforceable funding commitment will not be used for costs that will be reimbursed by other federal or state funding streams. Capital Projects Fund grants must be used only for complementary purposes. And again, we encourage everyone to consult guidance around this and email us with any detailed questions around this issue.
Thank you, Dana. And with that, I will hand it to Jeff to close us out today.
Great, thank you, Mo. And thank everyone on the call for joining us today, and for all your great questions that you've submitted so far. We look forward to partnering with you to make this program a success. You'll see on your screen now contact information. We've mentioned this contact information throughout the webinar. Treasury.gov/CPF is our website. Links to our guidance and the application portal are there. And we have an email for you at the bottom here, capitalprojectsfund@treasury.gov. And we encourage you to submit all of your questions via that email, because that will help us handle the volume that we expect. Again, so a lot of questions about, will we be posting these materials? Yes, we will be posting these materials. We have recorded the webinar, and these should be available on our website soon. We appreciate your patience as we work through to get those materials and resources uploaded for you. Again, just wanted to reiterate a couple of key points. We've gotten a lot of questions about recipients. So recipients are states themselves, territories, and tribes. So sub-governments, as Gang had mentioned, are not eligible applicants, but we encourage you to contact your state leaders regarding the distribution use of these funds. Again, I want to reiterate to visit our website at treasury.gov CPF for more information, and to email us at our email here with any questions. And we very much appreciate your time today, and we look forward to partnering with you. Thank you for attending. That concludes the webinar.